It sounds like with the brokers that you were bringing in particular, you were spending a lot of time with them and then putting a lot of trust with them for them to be partners with you on deals they found.
Right.
Did that structure end up? I know you said it worked out at least during the rapid growth, but throughout the whole time frame that the brokers were partnered with you, or maybe still are in some deals, do you feel like in hindsight that was the right way to go about it? Just making the pie larger and splitting it versus trying to retain 100% ownership?
No man's an island. You can't do everything yourself. And I was kind of the cog in the middle of the wheel then, and those 8 or 9 guys were out in the field finding the deals. My expertise was raising the equity. They raised some, but I raised a majority of the equity and structured the deals. And then they were in charge of that deal. They would oversee, we had property managers, but they would oversee the asset management, the leasing, and the ultimate disposition. So it was a really good formula. It was good people. And then, of course, 2008 came. And as I said, we really beefed up over the year. When that happened, we had 37 people. It was a substantial company. We were a force in the market. We had a lot of signs around town, a lot of listings in addition to the properties that we owned. And when that happened, well, let me digress for 1 minute. We got to a point where the portfolio was the largest it ever was. It was over 5 million square feet. And again, we kind of sat around the table and said, boy, it sure seems like an opportune time to be a seller. So we kind of put the feelers out, and we ended up going under contract with a group out of LA. And it was a very large deal. And it actually hit the newspaper. I still have the newspaper article that the whole portfolio was being sold. It was over $300 million at the time. And it's funny, people read that and thought I was going to have $300 million. But when you see or read that, you don't know how much debt somebody has, how many partners they have. We had hundreds of investors. But anyway, it got out. It was public pretty quickly, and we had a lot of employees. Good employees started leaving, and people started calling and congratulating us. And anyway, I'll never forget where I was standing when my cell phone rang when the buyer called and said we were financing it through Lehman Brothers and they just pulled the plug. So I kind of had a double whammy in that now the downward slide was going on, but I had a head start because we lost half our staff because they thought we were selling. And so after that, it was the toughest time in my life. I mean, the registered letters started coming from banks, and at the time, I was very exposed. We had several things under construction, some speculative deals, and in hindsight, you can be a Monday morning quarterback and look back and say, are there deals I shouldn't have done? Well, of course. Your ego gets away from you, and I can do no wrong. Where's the next deal? Where do I sign? And they just kept growing and growing and growing. And as I said, the registered letters started coming from banks, and the problems started, and it was a very, very difficult time. And it went on for a couple of years, and it was a different skill set trying to work out of that. And I know some people ran from it literally and changed their phone number. I hit it head on and sat down with each bank and said, this problem's bigger than I am. I signed on a $10 or $20 million loan. What are we going to do here? And it was interesting how, a majority of them, there was nothing fundamentally wrong with the real estate. Nothing really happened. I'll give you an example of a deal. One of my partners, Mark Pearl, he developed a relationship with Shop and Save, which was, big national credit tenant. We had built one on St. Charles Rock Road, developed it, and sold it, and made a nice profit. And this one, it was Big Ben and 141, which is a great signalized intersection, great demographics. It was a very complex development. I remember we built like a 40-foot retaining wall. The topography was tough. We had to assemble different parcels. As you mentioned earlier, negotiating the lease with a 500-pound gorilla, with a national company, They want to own the property without paying for it. They want every right in the lease. It took a long, long time. But anyway, we finally got it done, and it was a $10 million development. It was a local bank. We never got turned down by a bank. It was a gravy train. That was the easy part. Not just me, but you call from a cell phone from your car and borrow $1 million. Every bank said yes to everything. So we borrowed $10 million from a local bank, and the day we put the shovel in the ground, and it took 12 or 14 months until they were open selling groceries, but the market to sell that asset was, say, around a 5 cap, and we were building it at, I forget the cap rate, but there was a $1 million to $2 million profit in it the day it was finished, and you'd have a brand new 20-year lease with a credit company. You can sell it. Well, you know what's coming. Then 2008 hits while we're under construction, and the bank calls us in one day and says, we have this new appraisal for $9 million. So give us $1 million pay down or we're going to foreclose. And at this point, we had finished. They were open for business, beautiful building. And I said, what are you talking about? It's a 20-year bondable lease with a public company. It's the same real estate, same rent, same lease, same tenant. Nothing's changed except the perception of the value of the real estate. Just wait, there won't be a problem. Nope, we have this appraisal, mark to market. So of course, if you go down the street to another bank, they're going to get the same appraisal, so you can't move the loan. So we ended up selling it for $1 million loss. And the buyer laughed all the way to the bank. They had the cash, they bought it at a much higher cap rate, and we lost the property. And that was one example. And when this happened, if we had 45, 50 shopping centers at the time, maybe 8 or 9 of them were a problem. You say, well, it's only 20%. But when you have a $10 million problem and then a $14 million problem and an $8 million problem, and so it was really something. So signed deficiency notes, gave properties back to banks. And again, there was nothing we did wrong. We didn't lie, we didn't cheat, we didn't steal, just the market went down. And so I did pretty well over the years, but you can only write a check for $500,000 so many times. So it was very, very trying. And this organization that we built of 37 people with marketing people and agents and accounting staff and in-house counsel started downsizing and people started leaving. So the brokers couldn't make a living in 2010. So some of them got out of the industry. Others went to other companies on salary or, just dispersed. Pretty much still friends with all of them. There was no hard feelings. It was just the market. And one partner's still with me, Mike Hurwitz. We've been together 35 years. He, for whatever reason, some of the properties he had didn't get affected as much. We got through it. And anyway, it was one of the most difficult times of my life. We all have difficult times of burying our parents or a divorce or whatever difficult time in life. But that was an incredibly difficult time. And I had so many problems at once. There were some dark days. I'm a very positive person. There were a couple days I remember I just didn't know what to do. I remember went and met with this guy. He's an attorney, and he was a workout specialist for commercial real estate people, and had a series of meetings with him, and he had me convinced that we should throw them all in a pot, and he called it blend and extend, go to the banks and say, well, throw a little cash in and, extend the leases, extend the loans and, give a little to each person. He had a big fee in it for himself. And I was about ready to sign up with him. And my wife has been an integral part of my journey. She's not in the real estate business. She is now, but then she's in the medical field. She's a doctor. She's very smart, but didn't know much about shopping centers. Well, when this happened, she actually dove in. I was bringing boxes of operating agreements home, and she'd sit there and read and highlight and actually go to the meetings with me. It's one thing to come home and say, honey, you wouldn't believe what this banker said to me today. It's another thing for her to be sitting there in the meeting. So she was really a big part of my strength. But I remember I was about to sign up with this guy, and it was my wife that said, "You are the one that built this. You're the only one that can get yourself through it." And that's what gave me the strength. And I remember calling the guy the next morning and say, I'm going to do this myself. And you know what he said to me? He said, "You won't be standing in a year." And that motivated me more. And I got through it. I didn't go bankrupt. I, as I said, pledged this one and refinanced that one. But I sat down with each person and I got through it. And it took years to pay everything back, but I kept assets and got through it.